All right, and on the line now, I'm very excited to introduce our next guest. He is a fan favorite and one of the best tight ends to come through Chicago in recent memory. It is none other than Desmond Clark. Desmond, how's it going, man? We are very happy to have you on the show.
Man, everything is going well. Thanks for having me on the show tonight.
How's quarantine been treating you, man? How any hobbies, anything you've been kind of doing that maybe you wouldn't have done with quarantine? How's that been treating you?
Yeah, I think quarantine's been good because I've been able to focus in on some other things that I've been wanting to get going for a while now. My speaking career, I started doing more speaking now and starting to build my speaking business. So that's one of the big things that's happened since the quarantine all started. Wrote a book and everything. So
nice.
It's been good. I've been productive through the whole thing.
Yeah, and I'll talk about your book, or we'll talk about your book a little bit at the end of this. But so moving into the Bears now, this 2020 season in particular, very odd season, but the Bears seem to do a good job managing COVID and all the restrictions. What are your overall thoughts on their play this season before kind of getting a little bit deeper into it?
It was just up and down. I mean, you seen it. They went 5-1 at the beginning of the season, and when you really looked at that 5-1 record, you had to kind of question it. I know I was questioning it the whole time, and then the middle of the season came, and they went on that 6-game skid. But then they were able to turn it around. I just think that they never really found their footing this year, where they could get consistency, especially from the quarterbacks, and then it just kind of just fell apart in the middle of the season. But they got it back together towards the end of the season so they can sneak in the playoffs, which they did. But I don't know if anybody really thought that they were going to make a deep run.
Yeah, for sure. And especially that playoff game was a little upsetting, just kind of seemed super conservative and whatnot. But, talking about the QB play a little bit, what do you think went wrong with Mitch? And do you think that, I don't know if you've seen this in your career or not, but do you think someone like Mitch, who maybe hasn't been as consistent as he has for 4 years, number 2 overall pick, can go somewhere else and be successful? Or do you think he just doesn't have that explosive ability to really kind of stay consistent and be a really good quarterback?
Yeah, when people say, hey, what went wrong with Mitch? I think Mitch is who he's going to be for his career. I'm a firm believer after 3 years, you are who you are as a player. You really don't see players making big-time jumps in their productivity after the 3rd year. From first year to second year, you see major jumps. From second to third year, you see them solidify their position. Maybe you see some marginal growth over year 3, 4, and 5, but you really don't see those big jumps. So if he goes to another team, and I wish the guy well from everything that I know, I've met him a couple of times. Great guy. I wish him well, but I just don't see myself. I don't see him becoming like that elite starter or that starter that you say, hey, he's a top 10 guy in the NFL.
Yeah, definitely someone easy to root for. He seems like a great dude, works really hard, but just doesn't have it right now. Blake, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, we just kind of went into it right there. The Bears QB history is notorious. It's no secret to the fans of the game, Bears fans, football fans in general, that the Bears haven't been able to find a quarterback. But, you've experienced a couple swings by the team when they drafted Rex Grossman in 2003 and traded for Jay Cutler. But, what do you think the main reason is for why the team, hasn't been able to find a true franchise quarterback through the years? Is it the actual development process? Is it the evaluating process? Is it the pressure now to become a good Bears quarterback? What is the reason for that, you think?
I don't know. I don't think it's just one thing. I mean, and when you talk about the development process and evaluation, you had all different types of coaches throughout these years. You had all different types of people who were in charge with drafting people. So there's been different philosophies. There's been different coaching staff. There's been different ways to try to develop quarterbacks. I don't know. I'm more leaning towards a jinx in Chicago than anything else.
Yeah, it sure seems like it feels like there is,
because there's nothing that you can put your finger on and say, man, this, because we drafted first round quarterbacks, we drafted bad first round quarterbacks, we drafted decent first round quarterbacks. We went out in free agency and got quarterbacks, and nothing has worked for this organization to be consistent at that position. So, I mean, I really couldn't tell you what it is, but it's not for a lack of trying. I can tell you that much.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, that's the thing too. We've talked about, it's like you want to see the Bears keep swinging, because that's the only way that it's eventually going to happen. So we got our fingers crossed that one time here we'll finally get a guy that can at least get over
Deshaun Watson.
Yards. Deshaun Watson. I mean, that's the pipe dream right now, but
big pipe
we'll
dream.
see. coming kind of towards the end of this year, the end of the year press conference, it ruffled a lot of Bears fans' feathers. And George McCaskey and Ted Phillips, a big thing they talked about was they have the right guys in the building. And a big reason for that continuity and the collaboration displayed between the front office and the coaching staff was just, kind of a testament of how well these guys work together. Like, so, being an NFL veteran such as yourself, like, how important do you think coaching staff continuity is in the NFL? And how do you think that kind of relates to the coaching staff here in 2020 and going forward into 2021?
I think it's huge. I mean, when you look at the teams and the organizations that, they're always in the hunt, those teams that they don't have, head coaches every 3 to 4 years. They stick with it. And here's what I could say, and this is probably not a ringing endorsement, but that coaching staff that we have up there now never had a losing season. And I mean, that says something. And then they went to the playoffs 2 out of 3 years. So that says something about the coaching staff. Now, is it what we want? No, we want to get a deep run into the playoffs and contend for a championship title. But we also got to remember there are only like a few teams at the end of the season that's happy with, man, okay, we made the progress and we've gotten to where we wanted to get to. And for all of those, I know people say it's only one team, but not every team will leave out of this year like Cleveland. I think everybody in Cleveland is going to say, hey, this was a successful year. Did they want to win the championship? Absolutely. But they made strides to get to that point. And that's what we want to see here with the Chicago Bears. We thought we had that a couple of years ago and we regressed a little bit. But continuity is huge with just with coaching staff to players to front office. But here's the thing. We're getting ready to shift quarterbacks. We're getting ready to shift probably the way that we call out offensive plays. The defense continuity is another thing. So if it was a time to change, it would have been this year, seeing that we're going to move away from Mitch. I think everybody's expecting that.
Mm-hmm. And kind of a follow up here is like, what is that like when you're on a team that has a lot of continuity, like throughout the 2000s? Like you guys went from Rex to Kyle Lorton and then eventually Jay Cutler. What's that kind of like for an offense or a team when it's kind of like, okay, like the guy you had last year? Because I know Kyle Lorton was a favorite in that locker room by a lot of guys. And what's that like when you kind of be like, all right, well, we're going to move on from this guy to try and take a swing on another guy? What is that? What is the overall sentiment of the team at that point?
Well, I don't think we ever went from Rex to Kyle. We went from
Rex, that's right, because Kyle
Rex getting hurt.
Yeah.
To, and then Kyle took us through the 2005 season, and then Rex came back in the playoffs, and Rex was there every game in 2006. And then I think it was 2008 when we had that quarterback shuffle between Rex and Greasy and all of those guys. But then you bring in a Jay Cutler, right? You're bringing in an all-star. You're bringing in a Pro Bowler. So there's no, man, I wish we would have kept who we had, because we're bringing in somebody who is, I mean, they've shown that they're better. So it wasn't a thing of, man, we lost our guy. We're getting a guy that's not as good or questionable situation. So it was easy moving on as far as a player and want to win games. Of course, you have those personal relationships, but at the end of the day, I mean, we're doing this to feed the family and pay the college tuition and the mortgage and all of that. And the best way to do that is win. So it wasn't that hard.
Yeah, for sure. And then this other question I got for you here is kind of related to Allen Robinson's comments toward the end of the season, how he kind of mentioned he didn't really know who was calling the plays there for the last few games. And I know that was a hot topic of discussion for a lot of people, where they went from Nagy to Laser. And I was curious, is it normal for an NFL offense to not know who's calling the plays there for any particular week? Or is it kind of that collaborative effort most of the time, you'd say?
I take some of that with a grain of salt too, because he was disgruntled, obviously.
Yeah.
You know who's calling the plays. It's never a mystery who's going to be calling the plays during a season, even if they switch the play calling duty. So I wouldn't believe that. I wouldn't believe that 100%. I wouldn't believe it at 0%, because you know who's going to be calling the plays. Now, it could be a collaborative effort, but somebody, even when there is one play caller, right? You'll have like the tight ends coach. They do, when I was there, he did all the short yardage and goal line plays. So, and then another coach, he coordinated the passing offense, and another coach coordinated the run game. So all of these coaches have influence in the play calling, but there's only one person that's going to call that play in the game.
Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, because remember we saw Clancy Barone call that Cole Kmet goal line jet sweep. Yeah. So that's interesting. Desmond, to that also, Matt Nagy has been someone who doesn't hold his players accountable as much as a lot of these other coaches do. I know you had Lovey for a while. What is it like in a locker room when the coach doesn't really hold players accountable? Do you see players holding people accountable, or do you kind of trust in the coach's philosophy that, we don't need to hold anybody accountable? Everybody knows that they either messed up or they're doing a good job, and we need to continue that forward. Like, how does that kind of work in the locker room?
Right. First, our question: how do we know that he doesn't hold anybody accountable?
Yeah.
Just because he doesn't put it out in the media, or he's not that guy. I mean, people probably thought that Levy didn't hold people accountable because he never threw us under the bus.
Yeah.
But no, it was plenty of accountability there. I mean, I remember Levy told us in one of our meetings, don't come to the principal office too many times, and we all knew what that meant.
Yeah.
And that's all he had to say. So when you say not holding people accountable, what does that mean? Like, is he not yelling at them? Is he not calling them out in the media? Well, we don't know what's going on behind doors. And I can guarantee you, playing NFL football, there's accountability, not only from the coaches, but from your teammates also. And I think for my time and my era when I was there, I think that was the greatest accountability. Like Levy held us accountable, but we had such great leaders, not just the captains, but we had leaders in each room that held each position group accountable for what they had to do. And no position group wanted to be that group that was letting everybody down. So when you have the players holding each other accountable, it just makes for a better, more disciplined team. And I can't speak for that for this group, but I know for our group, I mean, think about Brian Urlacher, think about Peanut Tillman and Brown back in the secondary. Think about Tommy Harris and Alex Brown defensive line, Olin Kreutz on the offensive line, Musa Muhammad out wide. You got Thomas Jones in the backfield. I'm playing tight end. Like, you got leaders at every single position.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they had as many leaders position for position like we did, but I'm sure some of those guys were holding others accountable.
Yeah, that's a great insight to that. And seeing kind of what it's like, just because we're not seeing the coach hold him accountable doesn't mean it's not happening. So that's very interesting to think about. And I guess also to that, I know you said leaders at every position. Jay, not a leader on the offense. Was he more quiet? Like, we've had like Devin Hester on before, like Jason Campbell, and they said he's like kind of quiet, but sometimes not. How was that relationship?
It was fine for me, but just to be blunt and honest, no, I never really seen him as a good leader.
Yeah,
he was a guy that wanted to do his job, and then if he does his job, you do your job, I do my job type of guy.
Yeah.
And at the quarterback position, you need to be a little bit more of an overall leader, because everybody's looking at you. You got the ball every play. You got the marquee position. You have the most prestigious position in sports. There is no other position like quarterback. So to not be, and I think that was one of his downfalls, the leadership quality that he did not bring to the table. I think if Jay would have been a better leader, now, great player. I mean, he played his ass off, and he's the best quarterback that I played with. But in the leadership department, I mean, there was a lot lacking there. And if he could have brought more of that to the table, I think the teams that he played on could have been even better.
Awesome. Great question. Or I mean, great answer. That's very interesting. I know, like, especially a lot of Bears fans love Jay and what he did on the field, but we have heard that he's quiet. Maybe doesn't take that leadership role. So that's definitely very interesting. My last question before handing it over to Blake. As a former tight end, of course, what are your thoughts on Cole Kmet? We know that first-year tight ends in the league, statistically, historically, do have trouble adjusting to the NFL right away, and then year two is where we see them jump. Do you see Cole Kmet kind of taking a bigger jump in 2021? it seems like at the back half of the season, he kind of really blossomed into a pass catcher and even a blocker out there.
Yeah, the first half of the season, he was on a milk carton, right? Nobody
Yeah.
any of them.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, we started seeing him, make a catch here, 2 catches here, and then by the end of the season, he was a viable target for our quarterbacks. And like I said earlier, this is how I grade, the growth of players. From year 1 to year 2, you see the most significant jump. From year 2 to year 3, you see another significant jump. It can be as big as year 1 and year 2. I mean, but in year 3, that's when you become the player that you're going to be for the rest of your career. And like I said, there's going to be incremental growth. Like I became a better blocker later on in my career than I was early in my career, right? So there's going to be growth. But next year, yeah, you'll have to see that jump. And I fully expect him to make that jump because he's seen it. And now coming into his second year, his head's not going to be spinning. When he goes to training camp, he's been there before. He's seen all of this. So instead of him trying to figure everything out, he can go in comfortable knowing where he's at, what's expected of him, and what he has to do. And that takes a ton of pressure off of you just to allow you to go out and play football.
Yeah. Well, I know like seeing tight ends come in, there's some exceptions. Like we do see it kind of being a difficult position in the NFL to get used to your rookie year. What is so hard about the tight end position? Is it the ability to be able to get off the line quick, if you're running a route or block? What makes this position so difficult transitioning from college to the NFL?
So the tight end position is the most complicated position outside of the quarterback. Here's why.
Okay.
Because you have to be a receiver. So you have to know the entire route tree. You can line up out wide. You can line up in the slot. You can line up in your tight end positions. Then you have to be an H-back. So you got to know all of the running back blocking assignments, protections, and everything else like that. Then you have to be an offensive lineman and know all of the running schemes, all of the blocking schemes. You have to know the entire offense. Like the receivers, they don't have to know the blocking schemes down low. The offensive linemen, they don't have to know the route combinations. But we got to know all of that and the protections and everything else. So it besides the quarterback position, I think is the most complex position on the football field as far as the intelligence that you have to learn the position.
That's got to know the entire playbook. Do you have like the hardest or like the toughest player you've ever gone up against, either blocking or in coverage? It could be Urlacher in practice. I don't.
I used to get that question all the time, and quite honestly, I still get the question. And so I never really gave guys that much credit when I played. Because if I did, then I wasn't going to do what I had to do.
Yeah.
And there is, I could go back to my second year in the NFL, and I think the hardest time I ever had in a game was against Willie McGinnis. Now I was a young second year tight end, just trying to make some plays. And Willie McGinnis, big, strong outside linebacker with those long arms, man, he gave me a tough time getting off the ball. He gave me a tough time blocking him. And Mario Williams, who was the first draft pick for the Houston Texans.
Yeah, Mario Williams.
Yeah, he gave me because he was built just like Willie McGinnis, like just
that's
long
hilarious.
arms,
yeah,
strong as hell.
Hard to get around.
No, for him, it was just trying to block him. If you remember some of those shows where you got the little guy swinging at the big guy and the big guy holding him by the head. That's how I felt trying to block him, because I could not get to him because he could hold you off with one arm because he was just that strong. And he frustrated me the whole damn game. I tried to cut him. I tried to do different things. I tried to do my little hook move that I usually do. The dude was just big, strong, and athletic. And those are the guys the 2 guys that I can recall that probably gave me the toughest time in my career.
What do you do in that situation? Do you just like hope that you're just going to slow him down, or do you ever like I don't even know, like what do you do when a guy's giving you such a hard time?
You just hope that you can get in the way.
Yeah.
And then just hope that in film practice you don't get cussed out too many times. Yeah. It's tough, man. It's tough. Sometimes the matchups are bad, and those matchups were bad for me. I mean, if I go back and I look at the game film, I'm sure I did okay. But for me personally, in the game, I knew how hard I had to work to even try to get in the way, and so I'm probably been a little bit more hard on myself than the coaching staff would have been. But man, those two guys, they were hell. They were hell to block.
It's awesome.
Yeah, jumping back real fast to talk about Lovey a little bit, because I think a lot of Bears fans talk about too is like we kind of have this this remorse where it was like, all right, well, Lovey was let go after a 10-6 season, and now ever since he's been gone, it's like we're trying to like get back to where he brought the team. So talk a little bit about Lovey and what he meant to you personally and to you and your former teammates after, because I remember like all the stories after he was let go. It's like you had guys emotional in the locker room. Like, that's what we want now, because you see a guy like Mike Tomlin, a total players coach, where guys love him. It's like we had that, and then the Bears let him go, and now we're kind of just chasing that dragon, still trying to get back to that.
Yeah, I think that was the biggest mistake, and then the way that they let Brian go was the second biggest mistake. I think at that time they were trying to change the face of the team, and they wanted the face of the team to be number 6, Cutler, and that was a huge mistake also. But when they let him go, I couldn't understand. You go 10-6, right? In most years, 8 out of 10 years, 10-6 is going to get you into the playoffs.
Yeah.
And it didn't that year, and they used that against them to have a reason to fire him. But when this is how I look at it. When a coach has you in position and competitive most years, right? And we're talking about the Chicago Bears too, where Chicago Bears, we don't have that history of being in the playoffs, 3 out of every 5 years or 6 out of every 10 years. When you have a coach that's getting you there, he was there for 9 years, NFC Championship game, and a Super Bowl, and another playoff appearance, and a 10-6 season, and a 9-7 season that we didn't go to the playoffs. I mean, you look at that as somewhat being consistent.
Yeah.
And when you have the history that we have as Chicago Bears, like now we're craving for that consistency. And I just thought it was a huge mistake to let him go, because as you guys mentioned, after 9 years, most coaches, they lose their team. The voice fades away. With Lovey, his voice was still powerful. Everybody still played hard for him. Everybody wanted to win for him. Everybody came to work every day. You never heard of anybody like getting off the train and doing something different than what everybody in that locker room was doing. The company line was the company line, and we all told the line, and we all stood there and we fought for it. And now, I think you see a little bit of that with the coaching staff that we have now. But you got a couple of players that they speak out, but you would never had that with Lovey.
Yeah,
it just didn't happen. And I think that chemistry, it goes a long ways, because when you have everybody pulling from the same side of the rope, that means a lot. You don't have anybody in the locker room that's going to be a freaking cancer. As soon as they let Lovey go,
I was thinking that in my head the whole time you're talking.
As soon as they let him go, you have problems here, you have problems there, you have problems everywhere. And well, that's kind of what you get when you let go of a leader like Lovey.
Yeah. And I guess to kind of piggyback off that a little bit, thinking back to that season and your career, do you have any favorite memories, stories, or whatnot to from playing with the Bears and looking back on it?
Absolutely. I mean, my favorite time is when we came out of the tunnel for the Super Bowl, and they announced, the 2006 NFC champion Chicago Bears, and just walking, running out on the field and knowing that you're getting ready to play in the Super Bowl, man. That was a highlight of my career, just being there, because as a young kid, that's what you think about all the time.
Yeah,
football is playing in the Super Bowl, and man, it was just, I had to like kind of calm myself down, because I was like, yeah, I'm really here. We're in the Super Bowl, and it's in my home state too.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and you calmed you down for a couple of minutes before Hester took the opening kick. Yeah, even though they didn't win the Super Bowl, I mean that memory, just even, Bears even being in that game. I mean, we all remember where we were, who we were with. I mean, just everlasting. So absolutely, can totally get that. I can't even imagine what it's like to walk on the field.
Yeah,
for that.
yeah, for
So
sure.
that's gotta be awesome. But Blake, one more question for Desmond.
Yeah, so over the years, I think Bears fans, including myself and Austin, have come to love all you guys that played for the 2000s Bears throughout that time, just because a lot of you guys have laid roots here. You know, yourself, Alex Brown, Lance Briggs, Spice Adams. Like, I follow you guys on Instagram and everything, and I've seen you guys have lived here and everything. And I think that means a lot to Chicago and its fans. So, talk a little bit about the city of Chicago and the impact it's had on you during this period of your life.
Yeah, the city of Chicago is great. I'm actually living in Florida right now. I moved back to Florida back in July, but this is temporary for me before I come back this summer. My daughter wanted to come down to Florida to finish school, so she got actually go
nice,
and play sports and everything. But man, when you think about the city of Chicago, there are not too many cities in this world that's better than Chicago. Maybe in the wintertime, there's a few.
Okay, yeah. I'm with you there.
Yeah, but man, Chicago just has so much to offer. And the people, they love their sports and they love their people that play for the sports team. So when I thought about, hey, so what's next for me and what's the next career and what I'm going to do with my life, I looked around and Chicago had everything to offer for me to build another career and just capitalize on the name that we had, that I built and that we built as Chicago Bears there in Chicago.
Absolutely. And Desmond, before we let you go, I do, you do have a book you talked about earlier. I want you to talk about it a little bit, what it's about, what people can get from it, because I think it's awesome what you've done with that book. And then, obviously, we'll let you go there.
Yeah, so here's the book, Principles of Winning, 5 Keys to Create a Standard of Excellence. And for me, this book is like my life story over 40 years or so. And all the lessons that I learned, especially from about the age of 6 all the way to when I retired at the age of 34, and just what it took for me to win at life, and not just in football, but in life, and coming up through hard times and overcoming those hard times and getting through college and playing in the NFL when, I'm 250 pounds, I'm 6'2" and 7/8, and I'm a small guy. I graded an F in the combine, right? 37 out of 100, like everything. I was a 6th-round draft pick that never played the tight end position before. So how did I overcome all of this stuff? And that's what I talk about in this book, Principles of Winning, because now that I'm on this side and, I'm a speaker and a coach and things like that, I want other people to be successful. And I firmly believe that we learn in in one way only, is through new information. And you get new information through 2 sources, your own experiences or the experiences of other people. And I'm offering my experiences and the thing that I learned and the stories that I have to tell to other people. So hopefully they become better for it.
Awesome. And going from a F grade in the combine to a Bears fan favorite, one of the best Bears in the 2000s. So that's awesome. And Desmond, we really appreciate this time. This was an awesome interview. Appreciate you giving us the time, especially during now. Great to talk to you. Great to hear your insights, and wish you nothing but the best. And honestly, can't wait to check out your book. I grabbed Sam Acho's and read it. It was great. I'm definitely gonna check out yours too. And where can people get it? By the way, for listeners that are listening.
Just where you can get everything else off of Amazon.
Amazon, baby. That's it. Yeah, Amazon is everything. But yeah, that's awesome, Desmond. I really appreciate you taking the time, and can't wait to check out your book. But best of luck in the future, and this is great.
All right, appreciate it. Appreciate it, fellas. Y'all have a good one.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.